Alright, by popular demand, I will do the very different sort of dialect that I have learned to do in the recent years, starting with the French that is more congenial and natural to how someone who learned English as a second language might actually talk, as opposed to a sort of Canadian French, which is totally different, right, Kitty? And then there is French accent, which is sort of a stereotypical, look at me, I'm a Frenchman, I love to do this. As you can see, right, it's not necessarily, like, accurate, right? Like, there's one that's accurate, yeah, no, and that sounds, you know, like a real Frenchman, yeah? But there's not really how they're going to talk. It's just how we're like, you know, we're going to look at them and think, oh, yeah, you know, that's a Frenchman. Like, I can understand that, right? But, like, there's the one that we can understand and it's not actually, get your butt out of the camera. Get your derriere away from the thing. Look, it's not very nice of you to put your posterior portions in front of this camera when I'm doing a sort of English dialect. Don't you understand that, pussycat? Now this here would be something you might hear on a Shakespearean stage. It's to be expected. Don't you meow at me. But if you were from the north of England, it would be a totally different way of speaking. Wouldn't it? It sounds almost Irish, but it's not. It's the North countryside. I know this. You've seen it in the movie Hot Fuzz, where they say, oh, there's been a murder. It's said like murder for some reason.
The Beatles come from a totally different portion of the English island, and that's the best I can do of the Beatles from Liverpool.
Now, Irish is a totally different sort of thing. Now, from the southern portions of Ireland, it's going to go sort of like this, real smooth, real quick, clipped, you know, and now words come out real quick. Sometimes the way the phraseology, the way the words actually come out the face is different, but it's sort of this pattern of speaking. Whereas if you were from Northern Ireland, it's more of a question, almost like Northern England, but not quite the same as. It's totally different from Scotland. Now, the Scotland I'm doing now is sort of the Gerard Butler thing you've heard and are more apt to be familiar with from films. But there's different levels of Scotland as well. If you've been from Edinburgh, go real quick, words come out your face and they're getting down the face and the mouth and the tongue, they're kind of spinning out of you like a cyclone of English. That's been totally manacled and maligned and strangely put upon so that it's got a totally different feel to it. But if I were going to go all the way back to Scotland of the Shakespearean time, of the William Wallace, that in itself is, again, I don't ken how to quite put it across, but it's a totally different theme. It's like the George MacDonald. The Australian, by contrast, is a lot more easy to understand, you know. All you gotta do is sort of round out the way your voice works, you know. Australians are sort of like the Texans, you know, they're the Texans of England. That's what they are. You know, they're that version of Texan. So Australians more like this. You know, you've had people, they've got a real, this is a stereotypical voice of yours. Just so you know, I've not been to most of these places. I watch a lot of TV and I'm good at mimicry. I'd have to listen more closely, but if you put me in the right place at the right time, I can really pull it off. No, it's different from New Zealand. Yeah, no, New Zealand's got more of a question to it, doesn't it? Again, they go up for some reason. I don't know why. In New Zealand, like if you think of it, think of Flight of the Conchords, and you've got Britt, B-R-E-T-T, and Jermaine Clement, and you think of the men, Rhys Darby. That's perfect. Just think of Rhys Darby. Talk like him. Imagine your face is his face, and your mouth is his mouth, and you're making the same words. And all of a sudden, you've got New Zealand. Perfect, you know, mate. New Zealand. Yeah, no, ooh, ah. Questions, always questions. And that is totally different than South Africa. South Africa's sort of like Australian, but it's sort of gangster Australian, yeah? South Africa's real clipped like, yeah? I don't know why. Hard to breathe in South Africa. Some strange way of talking, I think it has to do with the German being mixed in. Once the German has itself all sorts of different ways of expression, you know. You have the German who comes from Christoph Waltz, which seems to be a German man using his English to the best of his ability to make a point. And then you have the sort of gay German man, or the one who is going to yodel, oh, they're a lot of fun, aren't they? Und then there is the scary German that will eat your face off and will fart voluptuously and with pleasure after it has passed through his bowel system. Ach du Liebe! Ach nein, sehen! And then you are going to have the Indian, and that is a totally different type of speaking at all, you know, just bubble your head. That is because in India, this is sort of like yes or no, and in the middle it is actually a gesture. It is not a stereotypical racist digression to point out sometimes those who come from the subcontinent of India are going to do this. That is a cultural sort of thing. And you know what, I could probably pull off the brown face very well. All I've got to do is this and wear the contacts and have a mustache and shave the rest of it, and it would go very, very well and nice, you know, very good. But that's a different sort of Indian than the type that is the Native American. All you have to do to imagine the Native American dialect is do a sort of Johnny Depp, but not quite, and stare off knowingly into the distance. That's the Native American that's more represented. They're a soft-spoken people. Unlike the Southern, yeah, skibbity bop doobie. That's how they talk in the Southern. Now, there's a lot of different types of Southern dialect as well. You got your Texas, and then you got your Florida, and that's kind of a Georgia, Florida. It's the north part of the area, you know, that sort of southeastern part. That's a way different way of speaking. It's a lot of fun. You get stuck in there, and you go right in there, and it's a lot of fun. New York's a totally different thing. I've known some people from the Bronx. I've known some people from Jersey, right? The Jersey Shore. I know how that talks. I've heard that. And it's not the same as Boston. You pack your car and have it out over in Boston. Boston's a sort of different sort of thinking there because they got a bit of the New York, but instead of the Italian influence, what do they got? So they got the Irish influence, and that's where the Boston sort of mixes in between there. And then you've got your Christopher Walken. Listen, he's got some pauses in his speech patterns. Why? Who knows? Listen, there's a moon. There's a sun. I've got a cat right here. How you doing, cat? Why don't you yodel for me? My cat has an anti-yodeling stance at this particular juncture in the space-time continuum. You want to hear how I do Ray Romano? I do Kermit the Frog doing his impression of Christopher Walken. Ah, real similar. Ah, same sort of thing. Unrelated dialogue. Then there's Patrick Stewart. We're in the impression section right now. Warp factor 5. I put the voice in the back of my throat and I try and sound commanding. Maybe I'll put this on a vocal reel. If I rum up my throat, I can do a good Liam Neeson. All you have to do Liam Neeson is growl on the ends. I have a particular set of skills. I'm sorry, it's not a very good Liam Neeson. I'm sorry about that. I know that. See, if you're going to be sorry, you might as well go to Minnesota or Canada. Sorry's a good way to go about that, don't you know? And it's totally different than Trey Gowdy. I like how Trey Gowdy talks. He's like, Trey Gowdy's like if Ray Romano was from the South. I'm Trey Gowdy. I'm getting rowdy. Howdy. Russian is different. Russian has weird sort of thing about it. What you do is you put a lot of Y, different Y sound in Russian dialect. And when you have the Y in the Russian dialect, it make it sound sort of, and then you have to drop different words, like it, the, a. You just say word that like come out of face naturally when subject is being discussed. And if you're going to be from Italy, is got the similarity to the New Yorker, but it's not the same. When you go with Italiano, it's got the feeling to it. There's something to the Italiano which is a sort of, how do I put this? Italiano is got the elegance, but it's a strange elegance. Where all the R is similar to the Russian, is not. It's me, Mario. Listen, that's a stereotype we all can laugh at. Hironobu Sakaguchi, design a video game, Super Mario World. Motorola is a crude name for a cell phone in Japan. And that's totally different than China. And if you mix China and Japanese together, you get a Korean. Sorry, that was a new one that I have not quite figured out yet. I already did Indian. Oh yes, the Middle East. He's a different sort of thing. He's similar to Russian, Italian. about the Middle East. That was getting really racist really quick. I'm not that good at that. Persian, I have to be from Persia. I'm not good at that one. I do a lot better if I do like a Mexican, you know, like a vato who live in Southern California. I do that all right. And I can do like your basic surfer too. But one I'm not allowed to do is the African. If I am going to talk like I'm from Wakanda, the people are going to get real mad at me real quick. Alright, I've got others. Those are just the ones I can think of. This is how I talk. Or is it?